In the Summer I Turned Pretty series finale, Belly's narration is finally freed from the constraints that held her back throughout season 3. For the first time, her inner dialogue isn't about convincing, deflecting, or suppressing. It's about acceptance. If you've been following along, you know I've broken down Belly's narration from season 1's curious, questioning voice to season 3's guarded and infrequent narrations. I've traced the cracks that started showing throughout the progression of season 3. So if you haven't seen those videos yet, I'll link them below so you can catch up. But now let's talk about the finale. In this video, I'll be breaking down Belly's evolution across the finale, how she shifts from performance and repression to self-acceptance and honesty, and why her reunion with Conrad was always meant to be. Along the way, I'll decode the parallels, callbacks, and hidden symbolism that make this ending resonate. To set the stage, let's run through the series and finale narration. Belly's voice has always been the thread that ties her story together. In season 1, that voice was curious, tentative, always searching for meaning. By season 3, it narrowed into infrequent remarks and explanations, glossing over major moments without reflection. There is a shift when Belly goes to Paris, where her narration becomes more honest. She isn't convincing or lying to herself anymore like she did most of season 3. But even in episode 10, right before the finale, Belly is still avoidant, refusing to confront what's been bubbling underneath. This is evident when after Conrad's letter arrives, her narration disappears for the rest of the episode. And just as those letters quiet her, Conrad's reappearance in Paris silences her inner voice too. She retreats into silence for most of the finale until she's ready to face herself. And the narration we do get is different. For the first time, Belly doesn't use it to issue proclamations or persuade the audience. Instead, she primarily addresses herself. Most of her lines are self-directed, questioning her own feelings. Her first narration comes after seeing Conrad again when she asks herself, "What are you doing? Just play tour guide for a few hours and then send him on his way." Notice, we don't hear her initial shock when he appears. This delay reveals her avoidance. She's not ready to face the rush of emotions head-on, only questioning herself on their reappearance after the fact. The series chooses to frame their reunion in an interesting way here. After an entire season of watching Belly through her own limited narration, the finale shifts the perspective. We begin not with Belly, but with Conrad. From the first point of view shot of him walking up to her apartment door, to the way the scene lingers on him waiting and watching her approach, we are in his point of view. His flashback to them in love in season 2 lets us into his inner world, showing how deeply he's affected seeing her again. Meanwhile, Belly's inner voice is silent. We don't hear or see her thoughts at all. That silence makes her seem distant, because we're seeing her through Conrad's hesitation and fear of the worst. In the books, Belly narrates this moment herself.
"The first time I saw him again, it was another year, and I just knew."
The show delays that clarity, holding us in Conrad's point of view until Belly is ready to face her feelings. So her first narration in the apartment following their reunion is her rational brain pushing back against the emotions she can't fully deny. It mirrors the book narration, but reframed. What she feels rises, but she isn't ready to voice it directly. That push and pull between avoidance and honesty has defined her all season. Because she's still avoidant, we don't hear Belly narrate during most of the pivotal moments with Conrad throughout the finale. She doesn't voice her emotions in real time, she only narrates when she's ready to confront them at the end. Until then, the episode stays rooted in Conrad's perspective. We see him not only waiting in the beginning, but again when she gets ready in her apartment. The second narration comes much later, after a whole day with Conrad and their honest conversation in her bedroom.
"I wanted to believe I changed, but I am still her. And was that girl so bad?"
She's questioning instead of declaring. And this time, she answers herself, saying, "And despite all her mistakes, I have to believe she's still worthy of love. I still love her, and I still love him." This is a breakthrough. Belly returns to herself, but it's not merely a return to her younger self. Instead, it's an acceptance of the part of her that has always been there, but buried under guilt and forced self-assurance. So this isn't a regression, but a release. The finale restores Belly's questioning voice, which has always been her truest self. Because aside from that one moment where Belly questions herself after the bathtub scene with Conrad, saying,
"What did I almost do?
Season 3 gave us the declarations from Belly, as if her life was already decided. And the return to her self-reflective voice is a reminder that young womanhood is supposed to be messy, uncertain, and full of self-discovery. This is also the point where we shift back from Conrad's point of view into Belly's. After their kiss, the camera follows her again. When she steps into the bathroom, when Conrad leaves her apartment, and when she races through Paris to catch him. By handing perspective back to her, the finale signals that she's finally ready to take ownership of her story again. The final narration seals this arc. It's contemplative and forward-looking, beginning with a parallel to her first narration in the series.
It was like coming home after you'd been gone a long, long time.
Nothing beats coming home when you've been gone a long, long time. This signals that she's returning to her core self, but evolved. And this continues in the final lines, when she says, "And just as it always had, the beach house held a million promises of summer, and what just might be. The future is open again, undefined and full of possibility." Just as in the pilot, Belly comes home to herself. This is also why, I think, a more open-ended conclusion was the right choice. Without the finality of a wedding, the story leaves space for her to keep growing. Now that we've seen how Belly's voice transforms across the finale, let's look at what actually makes this shift possible. How Belly confronts her self-image, rewrites her faulty memories, and ultimately arrives at self-acceptance. There is a significant plot point from season 1 that drives the story throughout the seasons. It's when Cleveland tells Conrad,
"You can't be good with someone else until you're good with yourself."
That line is the crux of Belly and Conrad's struggle throughout the series. They always intersect when they're not right with themselves. Conrad has spent the intervening years working on himself. Belly, though, needed season 3. Paris finally gave her the space to start confronting the feelings she had been repressing and evolve. But the finale shows that she still has more to face. One of Belly's clearest struggles in season 3 is her lack of decision making. Time and again, she defers to others, letting Jeremiah and Taylor sway her decisions about going to Paris and then canceling Paris, leading on Taylor to validate her choice to get back with Jeremiah, not once, but twice, even depending on outside voices to justify her engagement. Season 3 paints her as someone lacking confidence and seeking external validation. But Paris changes that. Belly begins to forge her own path without leaning on others. In episode 10, she keeps Conrad's letters private, and when Taylor pushes, Belly shuts the conversation down. She's not ready to face those feelings, but she's also beginning to claim ownership over when and how she does. She's not looking for Taylor's opinion on the matter. The finale reveals just how much she's been wrestling with the idea of who she is versus who she's supposed to be. With Jeremiah, she adopted the image of a self-assured grown-up, pretending that his cheating didn't mean anything so she could preserve that facade. In Paris, she tries another version of herself, convincing herself she has to move on, clinging to her new life abroad as proof of her growth. The clearest sign of this inner conflict comes when Belly calls herself a villain.
If anyone was the villain, it was me.
On the surface, she looks evolved, but that single confession exposes how stunted her self-image still is. She hasn't fully worked through the guilt and shame that surfaced after she calls off her wedding.
I just blew up my life and hurt everyone who has ever loved me.
She's still carrying old wounds, ones she never dealt with because she was too busy proving herself over the years. Calling herself a villain reveals how deeply she's internalized blame. Instead of granting herself the grace to be a teenager who was grieving, stumbling, and learning, she frames herself as the problem. We've seen this before. In season 2, she apologizes to Conrad for lashing out at Susannah's funeral, and later told Laurel,
"I know you hate me for it! Oh, you will never hate me as much as I hate myself!"
One of her worst mistakes didn't fade into the background. She internalized it. It became a part of her self-image. And this also gives us a window into why her narration was so absent across season 3. She was avoiding her own feelings, unable to put words to the shame she carried for her mistakes over the years. We see this avoidance catch up to her though. Messages from friends and family drag her back to her past. The weight of external forces creeping in activates her flight response here, and her instinct is to kick Conrad out, to shut out her old life. It isn't that she doesn't want him, it's that she's still running from her guilt and shame. This is why when her narration shifts after Paris, there's still that bit of distance there. In this moment, she's torn between what she wants and what she thinks she should want. So when she calls herself a villain, it's not an exaggeration. It's the culmination of years of guilt she's carried around. But what makes the finale so important is that we watch her begin to undo that false narrative. Even when she doesn't say it outright, she's doing the work quietly in every moment she spends with Conrad. Through their conversations and her private reflections, Belly slowly breaks down this warped self-image until she can finally arrive at her inner monologue of acceptance. Conrad is a big part of this transformation. He offers her a reprieve from her inner battle. Though he is from her old life, Conrad never imposes expectations. He meets her where she is, asking if she wants to be called Isabel now, showing genuine interest in her life and her friends. All episode long, he validates her as an evolving person, showing interest in her beyond their shared past. His birthday gift symbolizes this perfectly. He gives her a piece of home that got him by when he was away from home, acknowledging her Parisian life as something real, not temporary. Later, he even admits that he sees her flourishing here and he respects that. This moment is not about pulling her back home, but about recognizing her growth. That recognition is what ultimately allows Belly to finally face herself, accepting the girl she sees in that childhood picture, and in turn, accepting who she is becoming. And the contrast with Jeremiah is stark. Jeremiah told her not to cut her hair, discouraged Paris, and was clinging onto the comfort of her familiarity rather than letting her grow. Conrad, on the other hand, is genuinely curious about who she is through every changing season of her life. His birthday gift isn't about dragging her back, it's telling her to stay, where she's thriving. With Conrad, she feels seen as a person and not just a role. And after her inner monologue of self-acceptance, Belly chooses to go directly to him. Not to Taylor, not to Jeremiah, not anyone. Her decision to be with Conrad is hers alone. No one else dictates it, not even Susannah, who Belly thought was still pulling strings from beyond the grave. It's why they return to cousins alone at the end makes sense. Before they answer to anyone else, they need space to figure out who they are on their own terms. The series finale is packed with callbacks and parallels that chart Belly's growth, forcing her to confront the girl she's been trying to bury and inviting her to integrate that self again. One of the most consistent symbols throughout The Summer I Turned Pretty is mirrors. The finale brings this full circle. In season 1, Belly looks in the mirror often, before leaving for cousins, before her date with Cam, and before seeing Conrad after their almost kiss in episode 5. Each of those moments shows her preparing, questioning, and puzzling through who she is becoming. The mirror is a place where she checks in with herself. But in seasons 2 and 3, the mirror's significance as a grounding object disappears. In season 3, during her bachelorette party, when Belly's repressed feelings for Conrad are rising to the surface, there's a mirror right in front of her in the bathroom with Taylor, but she avoids it.
I only ever pictured Conrad.
She can't face herself or the truth she's trying to bury in this moment. That's what makes the finale so striking. We see Belly look into the mirror again right after seeing Conrad. She takes a pause and grounds herself. This moment is an almost identical parallel to season 1, when Belly readies herself before the mirror in a similar manner, both times going to see Conrad. In season 1, that mirror scene marked Belly's readiness to pursue Conrad. In the finale, the parallel shows that she's finally ready to continue that journey, the one that was cut short years ago. Belly's focus continues to shift in the finale. When Belly admits to Conrad that his letters kept her going in Paris, I think it sinks in for Belly just how present Conrad has been in her new life, because even before the letters, Conrad was always there. She recalls this when they're talking on the rooftop, and she tells him that on her first visit there, it was his comment about the Pacific sunrise that motivated her to stick it out in Paris. Without even a word, Conrad was silently motivating her from when she first arrived. I think these realizations compound for Belly when they're dancing by the Seine and she admits that he kept her going. She realizes that it's been for longer than she believed. One of the most meaningful callbacks in the finale is the parallel to the pilot episode, when Conrad teases Belly with the line,
"God, do you memorize every single thing that I've ever said?"
Back then, the moment felt light and playful, but in the context of the finale, it carries much more weight.
Do you memorize every little thing I've ever said?
For so much of season 3, Belly has vilified her younger self, the girl who loved Conrad openly. By rejecting that version of herself, she was also rejecting him. Revisiting this memory changes that. In their flirtation, Belly allows herself to entertain the past version of who she was. She tests it out, plays with it, and realizes she still likes that girl. She leans into the flirtation. This moment doesn't just reclaim Belly's worth, it reframes Conrad's role too. Belly never believed Conrad loved her as long and as deep as she did him, and she finally acknowledges that his interest was real from the very beginning, from the flirtation in the first episode. This moment also highlights Conrad's growth. In season 1, during a later moment in the pilot, Belly asks him for a hit, and Conrad shuts her down.
Let me have a puff.
No. No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
No.
In the finale, he no longer dictates or intrudes on her choices. He lets her be, giving her the space to make her own decisions. That subtle shift shows both of them evolving, Belly reclaiming her authentic self, and Conrad giving her the freedom to live in it. The birthday cake flashback also returns with deeper meaning. Back in season 1, Belly says,
I wished for Conrad on every birthday. Is Conrad still my wish?
This line marks a turning point for Belly. Belly blindly wished for Conrad every year, and this year was probably the last birthday she would have wished for him, and she left it with a question. She was beginning to wonder if Conrad was truly what she wanted, or if it was just a habit. That flashback reemerges with an answer to her question that has been hanging in the balance. She's asking herself again, does she still want Conrad? But this time, she has the clarity to decide her answer. Her subtle glance at Conrad before she blows out her candles, paralleled with the flashback of her gazing at Conrad longingly, tells us that her gaze holds the same weight as it did back then, when she wanted Conrad more than anything. He is still her wish. What makes this flashback especially important is that it belongs to Belly alone. Unlike Conrad's POV flashback earlier, this is her memory, her voice, her wish. It reminds us of the weight this decision carries for her and shows how central this question has always been to her growth. Even more telling, she brings it up later, openly acknowledging the importance of that moment. In season 1, the birthday wish was a symbol of longing. In the finale, it becomes a symbol of agency. By revisiting it, she's actively choosing who she wants and reclaiming her voice in the process. A significant parallel within season 3 that showcases Belly's transformation is between Belly's 2 opportunities to run to Conrad: the airport in episode 9 and the Paris chase in the finale. At the airport, Belly had just confessed to Jeremiah and to herself that she will always love Conrad. She sees him across the terminal, and for a moment, she hesitates, lingering before her flight. But ultimately, she walks away, not because her feelings weren't real, but because she wasn't ready. She wasn't good with herself yet. She was fresh off a broken engagement, still drowning in guilt and uncertainty. The finale gives her a second chance. Once again, Belly admits that she still loves him, but this time there's no hesitation. She doesn't pull back, she doesn't wait for permission. She chooses Conrad. The contrast between these 2 moments proves how much her self-image has changed. At the airport, she was fractured and unsure. By the finale, she's whole enough to choose freely, because she's good with herself, and she's finally able to be good with Conrad. That's what makes the finale so powerful. Belly's confession of love isn't just about him, it's about her. It shows that she's no longer defined by avoidance or external expectations. When she says she chooses Conrad, it's because she's choosing from a place of wholeness, not fear. And they come together after they've both had the time to get right with themselves. One of the biggest obstacles that Belly has to confront in the finale is her own faulty memory. The way she's misremembered or rewritten the past to protect herself. Throughout season 3, her narration wasn't just marked by silence, but also by distortion. She convinced herself of things that weren't true. The finale begins to untangle those distortions. The clearest example is the ring toss flashback. Back in season 2, Belly narrated this memory with heartbreak, convinced that Conrad invited her to the boardwalk so he could see another girl.
Conrad had come to the boardwalk for her.
To her, it proved that she was never really the one, but the finale reframes the moment through Conrad's point of view, showing him searching for her the entire time. He wasn't there for someone else, he was there for her. He also confirms this in one of the letters he writes her in the books. The heartbreak she carried was built on a misperception. He loved her before the summer she turned pretty, and the show reframes this memory for the audience, proving that Belly's heartbreak was built on a misperception. And we watch Belly reframe memories throughout the finale to come to this conclusion herself. We already covered the flashback by the pool, where she reframes that memory as a flirtation. And earlier, when Belly tells Conrad
Sounded like 10-year-old you.
she corrects an earlier notion from season 1 where she wondered,
What happened to the boy I loved since I was 10 years old?
now she sees that he never left. If anything, the Conrad she's facing in the finale resembles that younger, truer version of himself more than the one she briefly dated. It forces her to rewire the perception of Conrad she carried since their breakup. This breakthrough is crucial because the most damaging distortion in Belly's memory has always been her belief about Conrad's love for her. She never believed he loved her as she loved him. The audience saw the cracks in that story, but Belly didn't. It isn't until their honors conversation about Susannah and their grief that she finally realizes it. For years, she believes Conrad was only with her because Susannah's death brought them closer.
What if you only love me because that's what your mom wanted and then your mom died?
The same way she and Jeremiah bonded through their shared grief.
After your mom died, we put each other back together.
She feared her love for Conrad was built on shaky ground, but Conrad shatters that false narrative when he tells her,
I've changed everything about myself, and the one thing that never changes is that I love you.
this confession is transformative. His love wasn't conditional or temporary, it was constant. And Belly realizes the same is true for her. She's changed everything about herself over the past 4 years, but the one thing that hasn't changed is her love for him. In believing Conrad's words, she gives herself permission to trust her own heart again. Even the moment when she forgets the anniversary of Susannah's death ties into this. For Belly, it's proof that her love for Conrad exists independently of grief. Susannah isn't an active factor in her life anymore, yet her love has endured even without grief as the anchor. Her fear was that Conrad couldn't separate his love from loss, but the finale shows that's not true for either of them. By rewriting her memories, finally seeing them clearly, Belly also rewrites her present. Her narration shifts from distortion and denial to honesty. She chooses to believe what's been true all along, that her love for Conrad and his for her has never gone away. What makes this reframing possible is Conrad's vulnerability, because in the books, Belly admits,
Now I didn't know what to believe. I just knew I didn't believe in him anymore.
that loss of faith shaped so many of her misremembered memories. She convinced herself that Conrad never loved her as she loved him, that their relationship was built on grief instead of something real. His vulnerability in the bedroom conversation restores her belief in him, which in turn allows her to trust herself again. She admits,
I wish that I could be as sure as you.
that line is significant. She's not questioning his love. Even his past confessions this season were met with doubt. But here she believes him. She acknowledges his certainty, his unwavering, steady love, and it gives her the courage to leap toward him. Conrad's honesty does what nothing else could. It dismantles the false stories Belly has been telling herself and validates the truth she was too afraid to accept. And by believing in him again, Conrad opens the door for Belly to finally step into her own truth. The emotional climax of the finale comes in Belly's confession.
There are infinite worlds. Every version of me chooses you in every one of them.
This moment directly parallels her season 2 admission to Conrad when she says, "There's only you. There's only ever been you." Back then, Belly knew that Conrad was the one for her. And now, she allows herself to tap back into her emotions and the truth that she has deep down always known. It has always been and will always be Conrad. In the past, in her present, in any world. Their connection is infinite, and in the finale, the same truth resurfaces. Her words also mirror Conrad's own confession from earlier in the episode.
The one thing that never changes is that I love you.
Both of them acknowledge the same truth. Despite everything, their love has been the one unshakable thread through all their growth and mistakes. When Belly says,
I choose you of my own free will.
it marks a profound evolution in her character. Throughout season 3, she's been defined by external opinions, including the expectations that Susannah imprinted on Belly and even Conrad. But here, she doesn't look to anyone else. She doesn't wait for advice or permission. She chooses Conrad freely, without shame and without hesitation. The wording of choosing Conrad also fulfills a prediction I made in my episode 9 analysis of the airport scene, where Belly had the chance to run to Conrad but walked away. She wasn't ready yet because she hadn't made peace with herself. I said then that their reunion couldn't happen by chance or weakness. It had to come from a place of deliberate choice, and the finale delivers exactly that. Belly doesn't just confess her love, she makes an active decision rooted in her own self-acceptance. That's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not fate pulling them back together. It's not grief or weakness or timing. It's Belly finally whole and saying with certainty, I choose you. And because Conrad has already done the same work, their reunion is about two people who found themselves and then found each other. That's why the finale narration is such a powerful callback. In the season 1 finale, Belly confessed,
There were times this summer when I felt like I didn't know my own heart.
Back then, her narration was filled with uncertainty, longing, and confusion. But in the season 3 finale, we hear something entirely different. Belly declares that she knows her own heart now. She's done pretending, and for the first time in years, speaks from a place of clarity. And yet, there's still a thread of wonder in her voice. She knows who she loves, but she's also curious about what comes next. This is the full circle of her narration, once filled with questions, then silenced by avoidance, and finally freed in the finale. Her voice returns with honesty, self-acceptance, and curiosity. And with that, her story with Conrad reaches the place it was always meant to, not an ending, but a beginning. So since we know we have a movie coming on the way, where does the story go from here? The finale gives us exactly what I needed to, an open ending. There's no rushed wedding, no happily ever after vow, just two people choosing each other freely with the rest of their future still unwritten. And that's the beauty of it. Instead of promising instant domestic bliss, the story hints that what comes next will be about the very things that make Belly and Conrad work. In season 2, we got the phone call era where they bonded through late night talks. I think the movie will lean into something similar, with letters and more calls, giving them an opportunity to rediscover each other. And while the finale isolated them in Paris and back at Cousins, I think the movie will almost certainly bring everyone back together, weaving in family, friendship, and the Cousins beach house once again. But it makes sense that the show left us with the last image of the two of them alone. After everything, Belly and Conrad needed their story to finally belong to just them. They needed to rediscover each other, not just in Paris, but back home as well. So that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for coming along on this journey with me. It's been such a ride breaking down the narration, the parallels, and the evolution of Belly's story. I'll be covering more TV, movie, and book analyses here on my channel, so stay tuned. And do share in the comments your thoughts on the finale and any other media you'd like to see covered on this channel. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.